I turned 27 on a Thursday in March, and the morning arrived with all the ceremony of any other workday. My alarm buzzed at 6:30. I showered, dressed in my usual business casual attire, and made coffee in the small kitchen of my Denver apartment. The space was modest but mine, a one-bedroom I had rented 3 years ago when I started working as an accountant for a regional healthcare company. Every piece of furniture, every dish, every thread of clothing had been purchased with money I earned myself. My phone sat silent on the kitchen counter as I ate toast and scrolled through emails. No messages, no missed calls. I told myself I did not care, that expecting anything different was foolish, but some small part of me, the part that still remembered being 7 years old and waking to homemade pancakes shaped like stars, kept glancing at the screen. By noon, I had reconciled 2/4 of financial statements and responded to a dozen interdepartmental queries. My coworker Jennifer brought cupcakes she had baked the night before, and the team sang a brief, awkward rendition of the birthday song in the break room. I smiled and thanked everyone, feeling genuinely grateful for their kindness. These people, who had known me only a few years, remembered. They cared enough to mark the occasion. My father called at 2:15 in the afternoon. I saw his name on the screen and felt that old, familiar tightening in my chest, half hope, half resignation. I stepped into an empty conference room before answering. "Hey, Dad." "Ariel, happy birthday, sweetheart." His voice boomed through the speaker, warm and jovial. "How does it feel to be another year older?" "Feels about the same as yesterday," I said, keeping my tone light. "How are you doing?" "Oh, you know me. Keeping busy. Your brother and I went fishing last weekend. Caught a 10-pound trout, biggest one I have seen in years." I listened as he described the trip in detail, the cold morning air, the way the line had gone taut, the fight to reel in the fish. He and my younger brother, Cameron, had always shared that bond. Fishing trips, baseball games, long drives to nowhere in particular. I had never been invited, not even when I was young enough to beg. "That sounds great," I said when he paused. "I am glad you two had fun." "We did, we really did." He sighed contentedly. "So, what are you doing to celebrate your big day?" "Nothing special, just dinner with a friend later." "That is nice. Well, I wanted to call and wish you well. 27, time flies." I waited. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Then, because some part of me refused to let it go, I asked, "Did you forget me again?" He laughed. The sound was easy, dismissive, as though I had told a mildly amusing joke. "Forget you? Ariel, come on. You are too old for gifts. You are a grown woman with a good job and your own place. Love does not come in boxes, sweetheart. You know that." My hand tightened around the phone. I stared at the blank wall of the conference room, at the generic motivational poster someone had hung years ago. "Teamwork makes the dream work," it proclaimed in bold letters above a stock photo of rowing crew. "Right," I said quietly. "Of course. I mean it. You do not need me buying you things to prove I care. You are independent now. That is a good thing." "Sure, Dad. Thanks for calling." "Anytime, sweetheart. Love you." "Love you too." I ended the call and sat in the empty conference room for 5 full minutes, staring at my phone. Then I stood, smoothed my skirt, and returned to my desk. Jennifer caught my eye and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded and smiled, and she seemed satisfied. That evening, I met my friend Tessa at a small Italian restaurant downtown. She had brought a card and a bottle of my favorite wine, and we spent 2 hours talking about everything except my family. Tessa knew the history. She had heard enough over the years to understand why I kept my distance, but she also knew when not to press. "You deserve better," she said, as we finished our meals. "You always have." I just smiled and walked away from the topic, the same way I had walked away from my father that afternoon. What else was there to do? The pattern had started long before I was old enough to name it. My mother left when I was 4, disappearing one autumn morning with nothing but a suitcase and a note that said she needed to find herself. I barely remembered her. Just fragments of a voice, the scent of lavender, a hand brushing hair from my face. My father never spoke about her after she left, as though erasing her from conversation could erase the pain. Cameron was born a year later, the result of a brief relationship my father had with a woman named Diane. She stayed long enough to recover from childbirth, then left as abruptly as my mother had. My father used to joke that he was cursed in love, but blessed in children. The joke never felt funny to me, especially as I watched him pour all his attention into my brother. Cameron was a sweet kid, affectionate, and eager to please. I did not resent him. Not really. It was not his fault that our father saw him as the son he had always wanted, the second chance to do things right. But watching them together, watching my father teach Cameron to tie fishing lures, to change the oil in a car, to throw a perfect spiral, created a hollow space inside me that grew wider each year. I learned early that love in our house was conditional, distributed unevenly, measured in moments I could not access. So I stopped asking for it. I focused on school, on grades, on building a future that did not depend on anyone's approval but my own. I graduated high school with honors, put myself through college with a combination of scholarships and part-time jobs, and landed my first real position 3 weeks after earning my degree. My father came to my college graduation. He sat in the back row and left before the ceremony ended, saying he had promised Cameron he would help him move into a new apartment that afternoon. I told myself it did not matter. I had already accepted that I would always come second. Cameron, for his part, seemed oblivious to the imbalance. He called me occasionally, usually when he needed advice or money. He was 24 now, still living at home, still figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. He had dropped out of 2 different colleges, worked a series of short-term jobs, and spent most of his free time gaming or hanging out with friends. My father supported him without question, paying his bills, making excuses for his lack of direction. "He just needs time to find himself," Dad would say, whenever I hinted that maybe Cameron should be encouraged to take more responsibility. "Not everyone figures things out as fast as you did." I stopped hinting. It was easier to stay silent, to keep my opinions to myself, to avoid the inevitable argument about how I was being too harsh, too judgmental, too unwilling to understand that people developed at different paces. The weeks after my birthday passed in their usual rhythm. I worked, I went to the gym, I met Tessa for coffee on Saturdays. Spring arrived properly, filling Denver with that particular light that made everything look new and possible. I bought plants for my apartment, small succulents that required minimal care but added life to the windowsills. I started taking a pottery class on Thursday evenings, something I had always wanted to try but never made time for. Life felt stable, predictable, safe. I had built it carefully, brick by brick, ensuring that my happiness did not depend on anyone who might suddenly decide I was not worth the effort. I had learned that lesson early and well. My father called occasionally, always with the same easy tone, the same casual questions about work and weather. He never asked if I needed anything. He never offered help. I had stopped expecting either. Cameron called more frequently, usually late at night, his voice slightly slurred from whatever he had been drinking. He would ramble about his latest idea, a business venture, a trip he wanted to take, a girl he had met. I would listen patiently, offer vague encouragement, and end the call feeling vaguely exhausted. "You should visit more," he said during one of these calls in early April. "Dad misses you." "I am sure he does," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "I am serious. He talks about you sometimes, says he is proud of how independent you are." "That is nice to hear. You could come for dinner this weekend. I will cook." I declined politely, citing work obligations. The truth was simpler. I did not want to sit in that house, in that kitchen, where I had eaten so many silent meals, and pretend everything was fine. I did not want to watch my father and brother share inside jokes while I smiled from the periphery. I had built a life where I did not have to do that anymore, and I intended to keep it. The first week of May brought unseasonably warm weather and a series of complex audits at work that kept me late most evenings. I thrived in the busy season, finding satisfaction in the precision required, the way numbers told stories if you knew how to read them. My supervisor, a woman named Patricia who had worked in accounting for 30 years, frequently praised my attention to detail and offered hints that a promotion might be coming my way. "You have a gift for this," she told me one Thursday afternoon as we reviewed quarterly reports. "Most people see numbers as obstacles. You see them as puzzles worth solving." I thanked her and returned to my desk, feeling genuinely pleased. This was the validation I understood, earned through effort, measurable in results, untainted by the complicated dynamics of family obligation. Tessa and I met for dinner that Friday at a new Thai restaurant near her apartment. She worked as a graphic designer for an advertising agency and had recently been assigned to a major campaign for a national outdoor gear company. She talked animatedly about the project, her hands gesturing as she described the creative direction, the challenges of balancing client expectations with artistic vision. "You should come camping with us this summer," she said, as we shared pad thai and green curry. "A whole group is planning a trip to Rocky Mountain National Park in July. It would be good for you to get out of the city." "I will think about it," I said, meaning it. The idea of sleeping in a tent and hiking mountain trails appealed to the part of me that wanted to prove I could be adventurous, spontaneous, capable of joy that did not require careful planning. We were finishing our meal when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw my father's name. I considered letting it go to voicemail. It was late, and I was enjoying the evening, but something in my gut told me to answer. "Hey, Dad, what is up?" His voice came through rough and strained, nothing like the jovial tone I was used to. "Ariel, oh, thank God you answered." I straightened in my seat, my stomach dropping. "What is wrong? Are you okay?" "I need your help." The words tumbled out fast, desperate. "Your brother, Cameron. He drained my account. Everything is gone." Tessa watched my face change, her expression shifting from curious to concerned. I held up one finger, asking her to wait, and stood from the table. "What do you mean, drained your account?" "He took it all, every dollar. I went to the bank this morning to pay bills and there was nothing. Nothing, Ariel. 40 years of savings. Gone." My mind raced through possibilities, trying to make sense of what he was saying. "How did he access your account?" "I gave him my banking information months ago. He said he needed to transfer some money for me, that it would be easier if he could do it directly. I trusted him. He is my son." "Did you call the bank?" "Yes, they said the transfers were authorized. He moved everything into a cryptocurrency account. I do not even understand what that means. The bank says there is nothing they can do." I walked toward the restaurant entrance, needing air, needing space to think. Outside, the evening was warm and clear, people walking past in groups, laughing, oblivious. Where is Cameron now? I do not know. He has not been home in 3 days. He is not answering his phone. "Ariel, I am scared. I do not know what to do. I have bills due next week. The mortgage is due. I cannot lose the house." The panic in his voice was real, raw, completely unlike anything I had ever heard from him. My father had always been the strong one, the one who had answers, who laughed off problems and insisted everything would work out fine. Hearing him like this felt fundamentally wrong, like the world had tilted on its axis. "How much did he take?" "Everything. Almost $200,000. My retirement fund, the savings account, the emergency fund. All of it." I closed my eyes, trying to process the number. $200,000, a lifetime of work, gone. You need to file a police report, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm, practical. Right now, tonight. I cannot do that. He is my son. I cannot send him to jail. Dad, he stole $200,000 from you. That is a serious crime. There has to be another way. That is why I am calling you. You are smart with money. You understand these things. Can you help me figure this out? I stood on the sidewalk outside the Thai restaurant, phone pressed to my ear, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. My father, who had forgotten my birthday without apology, who had dismissed my request for acknowledgement with a laugh and a platitude about love not coming in boxes, was now asking for my help. My brother, who had always been the golden child, the one who received unconditional support despite offering little in return, had betrayed that trust in the most devastating way possible. Please, Ariel, my father said, his voice breaking. I have no one else to turn to. You are all I have left. I thought about 27 years of being second choice, second thought, second rate. I thought about my own apartment, my own furniture, my own carefully constructed life built entirely without his help or interest. I thought about the birthday call, about his easy laughter, about the casual cruelty of his dismissal wrapped in wisdom he had never earned the right to dispense. Love does not come in boxes, I said quietly. You told me that. Remember? What? Or money. Love does not come in boxes or money. Those were your words, Dad. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then he spoke, his voice small and confused. Ariel, I do not understand. I need your help. I know you do, I said. But I am afraid I am too independent for this kind of thing. You said yourself that I do not need anyone. That is a good thing, right? Please do not do this. Not now. I ended the call and stood staring at my phone for a long moment. Then I turned and walked back into the restaurant, where Tessa was waiting with worried eyes and questions I was not yet ready to answer. I returned to the table and sat down, my hands trembling slightly as I picked up my water glass. Tessa leaned forward, her face etched with concern. What happened? You look like you have seen a ghost. I took a long drink of water, buying time to organize my thoughts into something coherent. My brother stole $200,000 from my father. Drained every account he had access to. Tessa's eyes widened. Holy shit. When did this happen? Apparently within the last few days. My father just discovered it this morning. I set the glass down carefully, focusing on the simple action to keep myself grounded. He called asking for my help. What did you say? I threw his own words back at him, the ones he used on my birthday when I asked if he had forgotten me again. Tessa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I am not going to tell you how to feel about this. That is your decision. But I know you, Ariel. I know you will not be able to sleep tonight if you do not at least consider what helping him would look like. She was right, of course. Despite everything, despite the years of being overlooked and dismissed, I could not simply turn off the part of me that wanted to fix things, to solve problems, to make order from chaos. It was why I had become an accountant in the first place. The satisfaction of taking something broken and making it work again. We finished our meal in relative silence, Tessa respecting my need to process. She paid the bill over my protests, insisting that I had enough to deal with without worrying about splitting a dinner check. We hugged outside the restaurant, and she made me promise to call her the next day. I drove home through streets that suddenly felt unfamiliar, as though the city itself had changed in the span of a single phone call. My apartment, when I finally closed the door behind me, felt too quiet. I changed into comfortable clothes, made tea I did not drink, and sat on my couch staring at nothing. My phone buzzed repeatedly, text messages from my father, each one more desperate than the last. Please call me back. I am sorry if I upset you. I need you. Your brother left a note. He said he needed the money for an investment opportunity. He promised to pay it back. The mortgage payment is due in 10 days. I do not know what to do. I read each message and set the phone face down on the coffee table. Then I opened my laptop and began researching cryptocurrency fraud, bank recovery procedures, legal options for victims of financial theft. I read for 3 hours, taking notes, building a mental framework of possibilities and limitations. The reality was harsh. Once money entered the cryptocurrency ecosystem, recovering it became exponentially more difficult. Transactions were designed to be irreversible. Even if my father filed a police report and Cameron was eventually caught, the money might be long gone, converted and moved through exchanges that operated in legal gray areas across multiple countries. But there were steps that could be taken, immediate actions that might limit the damage or create a trail that law enforcement could follow. I made a list, prioritizing by urgency and feasibility. At 2 a.m, I finally called my father back. He answered on the first ring. "Ariel, thank God." "I have been researching," I said, skipping any preamble. "You need to do several things immediately. First, file a police report. I know you do not want to, but it is necessary for any chance of recovery. Second, contact your bank and formally dispute the transactions. Third, freeze your credit to prevent any additional fraud. Fourth, change all your passwords and security questions for every account you have." Okay, I can do that. Will you help me? I will send you written instructions with phone numbers and websites, but you need to handle the actual calls and filings. I cannot do this for you. What about finding Cameron? What about getting the money back? Dad, I am going to be honest with you. The chances of recovering that money are extremely slim. Cryptocurrency transactions are designed to be untraceable. Even if the police locate Cameron and arrest him, the money might already be gone. He made a sound that might have been a sob. Then what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to pay my bills? I will lose everything. I closed my eyes, fighting against the wave of something that felt uncomfortably like pity. Do you have any income at all? Social Security? Pension? Social Security. About $1,800 a month. What are your monthly expenses? The mortgage is $2,200, then utilities, insurance, food. Maybe $3,500 total. I did the math quickly. You are short about $1,700 a month. That is not sustainable. I know that. That is why I am asking for your help. His voice hardened slightly, frustration bleeding through the desperation. You have a good job. You must have savings. I need a loan, Ariel. Just enough to cover the mortgage until I figure something out. There it was. The real reason for the call. The actual request beneath all the panic and pleading. He did not want advice or support or sympathy. He wanted money. My money. The money I had earned and saved without any help from him, carefully building a safety net he had never thought to provide for me. No, I said simply. What do you mean, no? I mean I am not giving you money. You are going to have to figure this out yourself. You are my daughter. Family helps family. Family works both ways, Dad. When did you last help me? When did you last even ask if I needed anything? That is different. You are independent. You have always been fine on your own. Because I had to be. Because you made it clear that I was not a priority. But Cameron got everything. Your time, your attention, your trust, your money, and look where that got you. This is not the time for old arguments, he said, anger fully present now. I'm about to lose my house. I'm about to lose everything. And you are sitting there keeping score like a child. Keeping score? I am simply recognizing a pattern. You have spent my entire life telling me I do not need you. Well, guess what? You were right. I do not. And now you do not get to suddenly decide that family matters when you need something from me. So this is revenge? This is you punishing me? I paused, considering the question. Was this revenge? Or was it simply the natural consequence of years of choices he had made? Call it whatever you want. The answer is still no. You are going to let me become homeless because I hurt your feelings? I am going to let you experience what it feels like to handle problems alone, the way I have always had to. Good night, Dad. I ended the call before he could respond. My hands were shaking, adrenaline coursing through my system like electricity. I had never spoken to him like that, never voiced the resentment I had carried for so long. It felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying, like stepping off a cliff with no certainty of where I would land. Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay in bed replaying the conversation, questioning my decision, wondering if I was being cruel or simply setting boundaries that should have existed all along. By the time morning arrived, I had not reached any satisfying conclusions, but I had achieved a certain clarity. I was not going to sacrifice my financial security for someone who had never considered mine. Saturday morning brought rain and a headache that pulsed behind my eyes with metronomic persistence. I took ibuprofen, drank 2 glasses of water, and forced myself to eat toast I did not want. My phone showed 17 missed calls from my father, and 4 from numbers I did not recognize. I silenced the device and left it in my bedroom while I showered and dressed. Tessa arrived at 10 with coffee and bagels, letting herself in with the spare key I had given her months ago. She found me sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my laptop screen without really seeing it. "You look terrible," she said, setting the coffee in front of me. "Did you sleep at all?" "A few hours, maybe." I wrapped my hands around the cup, grateful for the warmth. I told him no. I told him I would not help financially. How did he take it? About as well as you would expect. He accused me of being vindictive and childish. Said I was punishing him. Tessa sat down across from me, her expression thoughtful. "Are you? Punishing him?" "I do not know. Maybe. Does it matter?" I took a sip of coffee, letting the bitterness ground me. He has spent my entire life making it clear that I am not a priority, that Cameron is the important one, the one worth investing in. Now Cameron has betrayed him in the worst possible way, and suddenly I am supposed to fix everything because we are family? It feels like I would be rewarding bad behavior on both their parts. "You do not owe him anything," Tessa said firmly. "But I know you. I know this is eating at you. So what do you actually want to happen here?" It was a good question, one I had been avoiding asking myself. What did I want? Revenge felt too simple, too childish. Justice seemed impossible. There was no way to retroactively fix 27 years of emotional neglect. Peace was closer to the truth, but even that felt incomplete. "I want him to understand," I said finally. "I want him to recognize what he did, what he failed to do, and how that shaped everything. I want acknowledgement." "Do you think you will get it?" "Probably not. People like him do not suddenly develop self-awareness in their 60s. My phone buzzed from the bedroom, the sound muffled but still audible. Tessa glanced toward the doorway, then back at me. "Are you going to answer eventually?" "Eventually, but not today. Today I need to decide what I am actually willing to do, if anything." We spent the rest of the morning talking through possibilities. Tessa played devil's advocate, asking difficult questions that forced me to examine my motivations and boundaries. By noon, I had a clearer picture of my position. I would not provide money, but I would provide information. I would help my father navigate the practical aspects of his situation, filing reports, understanding his options, creating a budget, but I would not sacrifice my own financial security to compensate for Cameron's theft or my father's poor judgment. That afternoon, I sent my father a detailed email outlining the steps he needed to take. I included links to free legal aid resources, contact information for credit counseling services, and a basic template for creating a post-crisis budget. The email was professional, thorough, and emotionally neutral. I ended it with a single paragraph that summarized my position. I am willing to provide guidance and information, but I will not provide financial support. This boundary is not negotiable. If you choose to contact me again, it must be with the understanding that I am offering advice only. I hope you can respect this limit. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then closed my laptop and tried to reclaim what remained of my weekend. Sunday passed quietly. I went to the gym, did laundry, meal prepped for the coming week. Normal tasks that helped create the illusion of normalcy. My father did not call, did not text, did not respond to my email. I told myself I was relieved. Monday morning brought a return to work routines that felt almost startling in their ordinariness. I arrived at the office at 8, made small talk with colleagues, reviewed spreadsheets that required my complete attention. Patricia stopped by my desk mid-morning with news that the promotion we had discussed was being finalized. I would be moving up to senior accountant with a 15% salary increase, effective at the start of the next quarter. "You have earned this," Patricia said, smiling warmly. "Your work has been consistently excellent. The partners specifically mentioned you during the review meeting." I thanked her, feeling genuine pride mixed with something more complicated. The promotion represented everything I had worked toward, tangible proof that I had built something valuable through my own effort. But it also highlighted the contrast with my family situation. Professional success that would remain invisible to my father, unacknowledged and unappreciated. That evening, as I was leaving the office, my phone rang. Not my father this time, but a number with a local area code I did not recognize. I answered cautiously. "Is this Ariel?" The voice was male, young, uncertain. "Yes. Who is this?" "It is Tyler, Cameron's friend. We met a couple times at your dad's place." I vaguely remembered a lanky kid with bad posture who had been present at a family dinner I had attended the previous Christmas. "Okay. What do you need, Tyler?" "I need to talk to you about Cameron, about what he did. Can we meet somewhere? I have information you should probably hear." My grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of information?" "Not over the phone, please. There is a coffee shop on 16th Street, the one near the bookstore. Can you meet me there in an hour?" Every instinct told me this was a bad idea, that getting further involved would only complicate an already messy situation. But curiosity won out, the same impulse that made me good at my job, the need to see all the data before making decisions. 1 hour, I agreed. I will be there. The coffee shop was moderately crowded when I arrived, filled with the after-work crowd seeking caffeine and Wi-Fi. I spotted Tyler immediately, sitting alone at a corner table, nervously shredding a napkin into strips. He looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes that suggested stress or lack of sleep or both. I ordered tea at the counter, then joined him at the table. "You wanted to talk." He glanced around as though checking for eavesdroppers, then leaned forward. Cameron did not act alone. The cryptocurrency thing, the theft. It was not his idea. Whose idea was it? There is this guy, Dominic. He runs what he calls an investment group, but it is basically a scam. He targets people with access to money and convinces them to invest in crypto schemes that never pan out. Cameron got involved with him about 6 months ago. I processed this information, fitting it into the larger puzzle. And Dominic convinced Cameron to steal from our father? Not directly, but he created this whole pressure situation. Told Cameron he needed to invest at least $200,000 to get in on a ground floor opportunity. Said it would triple in value within 3 months. Cameron believed him. He really thought he was helping your dad by making this investment. That is still theft, I said flatly. Good intentions do not erase the fact that he stole $200,000. I know that. But Cameron is in way over his head. Dominic has him convinced that if he goes to the police, the whole thing will collapse and he will lose everything. He is scared, Ariel. He is hiding because he does not know what else to do. Why are you telling me this? Tyler looked down at the shredded napkin, his jaw working. Because I am involved too. Dominic got me to invest $15,000, my entire college fund. My parents do not know yet. I'm trying to figure out how to tell them. But I thought maybe if you knew the whole story, you could help Cameron somehow. He talks about you sometimes, says you are the smart one, the one who has everything figured out. The irony was almost funny. Cameron, who had always been the golden child, saw me as the successful one. Meanwhile, I had spent years believing he had everything I lacked. Where is Cameron now? Staying with another friend. He is afraid to go home, afraid your dad will call the police. Our dad should call the police. This Dominic person needs to be stopped before he ruins more lives. But that would mean Cameron goes to jail too. Cameron made choices, bad ones. He needs to face consequences. I softened my tone slightly, seeing the genuine distress on Tyler's face. Look, I understand you are trying to help your friend, but enabling him to avoid responsibility is not helping. It is just delaying the inevitable. Tyler nodded miserably. I know. You are right. I just thought maybe there was another way. I left the coffee shop feeling heavier than when I arrived. The situation was more complicated than I had realized. Layers of manipulation and desperation creating a mess that would not be easily resolved. Cameron was not simply a thief. He was a victim too in his way, caught in a scheme that had exploited his weaknesses and his desperation for approval. But that did not change the fundamental truth. He had stolen money that was not his, and my father was suffering the consequences. The next 2 weeks unfolded with the surreal quality of a fever dream. My father called daily, sometimes multiple times, his messages alternating between desperate pleas and angry accusations. He had filed the police report as I had instructed, but Cameron had disappeared completely, and the investigation was moving at the glacial pace, typical of financial crimes without clear evidence or cooperative witnesses. I maintained my boundary, refusing financial help, but continuing to provide information and resources. I sent him the contact information for a reverse mortgage company that might allow him to tap his home equity. I researched payment assistance programs through his utility companies. I created a detailed budget that showed exactly how much he needed to cut his expenses to survive on Social Security alone. Each email I sent was met with complaints that I was being cold, heartless, more interested in teaching lessons than helping family. I did not respond to the accusations. Instead, I continued doing my job, meeting with Tessa, attending my pottery class, building my own life while the framework of my childhood family crumbled. 3 weeks after the initial call, Tyler contacted me again. This time, he wanted to meet with more urgency in his voice. Dominic is planning to leave the country, he told me over the phone. I overheard him talking about it with some other people in the group. He is taking all the money and disappearing. If we do not do something now, everyone loses everything. This is a matter for the police, I said. The police do not have enough evidence to arrest him yet. By the time they do, he will be gone. But I have access to some of his records. I have been keeping copies of everything because I had a feeling something was wrong. If someone who understands finance looked at them, they might be able to see the pattern, might be able to help the police build a case faster. I should have said no, should have maintained my distance, protected my own peace. But the part of me that solved puzzles, that found satisfaction in making sense of chaos, could not resist. Send me what you have. I will look at it. No promises beyond that. Tyler emailed me dozens of files that evening. Bank statements, transaction records, text message screenshots, scanned documents that outlined the investment scheme. I opened them on my laptop and immediately recognized the patterns. Dominic was running a classic Ponzi scheme, using money from new investors to pay returns to earlier participants, creating the illusion of profitability while systematically draining funds into his own accounts. The records Tyler had provided showed at least 30 different victims, people who had collectively invested over $3 million. Cameron's $200,000 was just one piece of a much larger operation. The scheme was sophisticated enough to avoid immediate detection, but sloppy enough that a forensic accountant could tear it apart with a few hours of focused analysis. I spent the entire night building a case file. I organized the documents chronologically, created spreadsheets tracking money flows, identified specific transactions that demonstrated fraud. By dawn, I had a comprehensive report that laid out the entire operation in language even a financial novice could understand. Then I did something I had not done in weeks. I called my father. He answered warily. "Ariel, I have information about Cameron's situation, about the person who convinced him to steal from you. Can you come to my apartment this morning? I need to show you something." "Why? Are you finally going to help?" "Just come, please." He arrived 2 hours later, looking older than I remembered. The stress had carved new lines into his face, added a stoop to his shoulders that spoke of sleepless nights and constant worry. I felt a pang of something uncomfortably close to sympathy, but I pushed it aside. This was not about emotion. This was about information. I showed him everything I had compiled, explained how the scheme worked, how Cameron had been targeted, how at least 24 other people had been similarly victimized. His face went through several transformations as I walked him through the evidence. Shock, anger, confusion, and finally something that might have been understanding. "Cameron thought he was investing," he said quietly when I finished. "He thought he was making money for me. He thought wrong, but he was manipulated by someone who does this professionally. That does not excuse what he did, but it provides context. What do I do with this information? You take it to the detective handling your case. This evidence should be enough to fast-track the investigation. If they move quickly, they might be able to freeze Dominic's accounts before he leaves the country. That might mean recovering at least some of the stolen money." My father stared at the papers spread across my coffee table, his hands trembling slightly. "Why are you helping now, after everything you said?" "Because this is bigger than you and Cameron and old resentments. 30 people have been victimized. If I can help stop it, then I should. But make no mistake, Dad. This does not change anything between us. I am still not giving you money. I am still not going to pretend that everything is fine. This is me doing the right thing, not me forgiving you." He nodded slowly. "I understand. Thank you. For this, at least." After he left, I sat in my apartment feeling strange. Not satisfied exactly, but purposeful. I had used my skills to expose something genuinely harmful, to potentially help people I would never meet. It felt different from the petty satisfaction of refusing to help, cleaner somehow. The police moved faster than I expected. Within 3 days, they had arrested Dominic at the airport, caught him attempting to board a flight to Costa Rica with 2 suitcases of cash. The arrest made local news, and my phone lit up with messages from Tyler, from my father, even from strangers who had been victims and somehow gotten my contact information. Cameron turned himself in a week later. The police offered him a deal in exchange for his cooperation: probation instead of jail time, restitution payments spread over several years. My father mortgaged his house to pay for Cameron's legal fees, a choice I understood even if I did not agree with it. The recovered money amounted to about 40% of what had been stolen. My father received approximately $80,000, enough to stabilize his immediate situation, but nowhere near what he had lost. He called to tell me, his voice carrying notes of relief and residual stress. "It is not everything, but it is something. I can breathe again. I can keep the house." "That is good, Dad. I am glad. I have been thinking about what you said. About Cameron getting all the attention, all the support. You were right. I was not fair to you. I waited, not trusting myself to speak. I do not know how to fix it. I do not know if I can. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I did wrong." "Okay," I said carefully. "What are you going to do with that recognition?" "I do not know yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe it is too late. But I thought you should hear me say it. You deserved better. You deserved better from me. It was not an apology, not exactly, but it was closer than I had ever gotten before. Acknowledgement without excuses, recognition without requests. It did not heal the wounds of 27 years, but it was something. Thank you for saying that, I told him. It matters. We talked for a few more minutes, awkward and uncertain, testing the boundaries of what our relationship might become. When the call ended, I sat holding my phone and realized something had shifted. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but perhaps the possibility of both, somewhere down the line. For now, that was enough. Summer arrived in Denver with the kind of heat that made the air shimmer above asphalt and drove everyone indoors during the peak afternoon hours. I had settled into a new rhythm at work, the promotion bringing additional responsibilities that kept me engaged and challenged. Patricia assigned me to lead a team conducting a major audit for a manufacturing company, and I threw myself into the project with the intensity that had always served me well. My father and I spoke occasionally, brief phone calls that maintained a cordial distance. He updated me on Cameron's community service hours and restitution payments. He mentioned selling some furniture and downsizing his lifestyle to accommodate his reduced financial circumstances. I listened without offering advice unless directly asked, maintaining the boundary I had established. Cameron reached out in mid-June with a text message that simply said, "Can we talk?" I waited 2 days before responding. "What about?" "I want to apologize, face to face. Will you meet me?" Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain the safe distance I had carefully constructed. But curiosity won out again, that persistent need to see patterns through to their conclusions. I agreed to meet him at a park near downtown, a neutral public space where the conversation could remain brief if necessary. He looked different when I saw him waiting by the fountain. Thinner, more subdued, lacking the easy confidence I remembered. He wore a plain t-shirt and jeans, his hair longer than usual, shadows under his eyes that spoke of troubled sleep. "Thanks for coming," he said as I approached. "I was not sure you would." I almost did not. I sat on a bench facing the fountain, leaving space between us. "You said you wanted to apologize." Cameron sat down, his hands clasped between his knees. "I messed up, completely. I know that now. I thought I was being smart, thought I was helping Dad by making this investment. Dominic made it sound so easy, so guaranteed. I did not realize what I was doing until it was too late." "You stole $200,000, I said flatly. "You knew that much, at least." I know. There is no excuse for that, but I genuinely believed I would be able to pay it back with interest within a few months. I thought Dad would never even need to know. I thought I would be the hero who solved all his retirement worries. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or dishonesty, but saw only genuine regret. "Why did you need to be the hero? Dad already treated you like one." Cameron laughed bitterly. "Did he?" Because from where I was sitting, I was the disappointment. The son who could not finish college, who could not hold a job, who still lived at home at 24. You were the successful one. You had your life together. I was just the screw-up trying to prove I could do something right. The perspective shift was disorienting. I had spent so many years believing Cameron had everything, our father's attention, his approval, his unconditional support. Hearing that Cameron had felt inadequate, had been trying to earn validation through increasingly desperate means, complicated the narrative I had constructed. "That does not justify what you did," I said. "I know. I am not trying to justify it. I am trying to explain it. And I am trying to say I am sorry. To you, specifically. Tyler told me what you did, how you helped build the case against Dominic. You did not have to do that, especially after Dad called you on your birthday and said those things." "How do you know about that?" "He told me. Later, when he was yelling at me about everything. He mentioned that you had asked if he forgot you again, and he had laughed and said that thing about love not coming in boxes. He said it like it was a reasonable response, like you were being silly for caring. I realized then that he has always done that, dismissed you while propping me up. I just never saw it before. I watched water arc from the fountain, catching sunlight and throwing brief rainbows into the air. What do you want from me, Cameron? Absolution? Permission to feel better about what you did? No, I want you to know that I see it now. The imbalance. The way you were treated. And I want you to know that I am going to talk to Dad about it. Not to excuse myself, but because it is not fair, and it never was. Will that change anything? Probably not, but maybe it is a start. He stood up, seeming to recognize that the conversation had reached its natural end. Anyway, that is what I wanted to say. You did not owe me anything, and you helped anyway. That means something. After he left, I sat by the fountain for another 20 minutes processing the conversation. Revenge, I realized, was more complicated than I had imagined. I had wanted my father to suffer consequences for his years of neglect, and he had, losing his savings, nearly losing his home, facing the betrayal of the son he had favored. But watching it happen had not brought the satisfaction I expected. Instead, it had revealed the intricate web of pain and misunderstanding that connected all of us, each person acting from their own wounds and limitations. That evening, Tessa came over with wine and Thai takeout. We sat on my small balcony watching the sunset over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. You seem different, she observed. Lighter, maybe? Or at least less angry. I think I am tired of being angry, I admitted. It takes so much energy to maintain that level of resentment. And for what? They are who they are. I cannot change the past. Does this mean you are forgiving them? I do not know if forgiveness is the right word. Maybe acceptance is closer. Accepting that they are flawed people who made mistakes, and that I can move forward without needing them to be different. That is very mature of you, Tessa said with a slight smile. Almost annoyingly mature. I laughed. Trust me, I am not that evolved. I still have moments where I want to throw my father's words back in his face, but I am working on it. What about your dad? Has he changed at all? A little. He acknowledged that he treated me unfairly. He has not done much with that acknowledgement yet, but it is more than I had before. We finished the wine as darkness settled over Denver, the city lights beginning to glow like scattered stars. I felt something shift inside me, a loosening of the tight knot I had carried for so long. Not resolution, exactly, but movement toward it. July brought the camping trip Tessa had mentioned months earlier. 6 of us drove up to Rocky Mountain National Park on a Friday afternoon, our cars packed with tents and sleeping bags and enough food to sustain a small army. I had been nervous about the trip, worried I would feel out of place among Tessa's adventurous friends, but the group welcomed me easily. We hiked to a backcountry site the first evening, setting up camp near a small lake that reflected the surrounding peaks like a mirror. Someone built a fire while others prepared dinner. I found myself relaxing in a way I had not managed in months, the mountain air and physical exertion clearing my mind of the complicated emotions that had dominated my spring. Around the fire that night, people told stories and passed a flask of whiskey. Tessa's boyfriend, James, worked as a wilderness guide and entertained us with tales of tourists who thought bears would respond to polite requests to leave campsites alone. A woman named Keiko, who taught high school biology, talked about her students' misconceptions regarding basic survival skills. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the crackling of burning wood. "What about you, Ariel?" James asked at one point. "What is your best revenge story?" The question caught me off guard. "What makes you think I have one?" "Everyone has one. Some wrong that needed righting, some person who deserved what they got. Come on, share." I considered deflecting, but something about the setting, the darkness beyond the firelight, the sense of temporary community among relative strangers, made me want to tell the truth. My father dismissed me for most of my life, I said slowly. Treated me like I was less important than my brother, like I did not need attention or support because I was more independent. Then my brother stole $200,000 from him, and my father called me crying and asking for help. "What did you do?" Keiko asked. I told him no. I threw his own words back at him, the ones he had used on my birthday when I asked if he had forgotten me. I watched him panic and struggle and nearly lose everything. Part of me wanted him to lose it all, wanted him to understand what it felt like to be abandoned when you needed someone. But you did not let that happen, Tessa said quietly. No. I helped build a case against the person who had manipulated my brother into the theft. Not to save my father exactly, but because it was the right thing to do. And in the process, he got back some of what he lost. Not all of it, but enough. So did you get your revenge? James asked. I thought about the question, watching sparks from the fire drift upward into the darkness. I do not know. I got acknowledgement. I got an admission that I was treated unfairly. But the revenge itself, the satisfaction of watching him suffer, that felt emptier than I expected. I think real revenge might just be building a good life without needing their validation. That is what actually hurt him. Not my refusal to help, but the realization that I genuinely did not need him anymore. The conversation moved on to other topics, but I continued thinking about my own words. Building a good life without needing validation from people who had withheld it. That had been my true revenge all along, whether I had recognized it or not. We spent 3 days in the mountains, hiking and swimming in freezing lakes and sleeping under skies so clear the Milky Way stretched from horizon to horizon. I returned to Denver on Monday, feeling renewed, ready to face whatever came next, with fresh perspective. What came next was an unexpected phone call from my father's neighbor, a woman named Joyce, whom I had met a few times over the years. Your father fell, she told me without preamble. He is in the hospital, broke his hip. The doctors say he will need surgery and then extensive rehabilitation. My stomach dropped. When did this happen? This morning. He was trying to fix something on his roof. He did not want to pay someone to do it, said he could handle it himself. Stubborn man. Which hospital? She gave me the information, and I promised to head there immediately. As I drove across the city, I felt the familiar tangle of emotions. Worry mixed with frustration, concern layered over old resentments. He was my father, however complicated our relationship. I could not simply abandon him in a moment of genuine crisis. I found him in a room on the 3rd floor, his leg elevated and immobilized, his face drawn with pain despite whatever medication they had given him. He looked small in the hospital bed, vulnerable in a way I had never associated with him. Ariel, he said when he saw me. You came. Joyce called me. What were you thinking, climbing on your roof at your age? I needed to fix the gutter. Water was pooling near the foundation. I could not afford to hire someone. You could have asked for help. You could have called me. Could I? After everything? I thought you had made it clear you wanted distance. I pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. Distance, yes, but not complete abandonment. There is a difference. He studied my face for a long moment. I do not know how to navigate this. Our relationship. I know I ruined it, but I do not know how to fix it. Maybe you cannot fix it, I said. Maybe the best we can do is build something new from here. Something honest, where we actually talk about the hard things instead of pretending everything is fine. I am afraid I am too old to change that much. Then maybe you stay the same, and I accept you as you are. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to all this anger is exhausting. I am tired of being angry, Dad. I am tired of keeping score. His eyes grew damp, and he looked away toward the window. I was so focused on Cameron, on trying to give him what I thought he needed. I did not realize I was failing you in the process, and now I have failed both of you. He is facing criminal charges, and you do not trust me. Some father I turned out to be. You made mistakes. You are still making them. But you are also trying, in your limited way, to do better. That counts for something. We talked for another hour, covering ground we had never dared approach before. He told me about his own father, who had been distant and critical, and how he had sworn he would be different with his own children. He talked about my mother leaving, and how that had broken something in him that never fully healed. He admitted that he had projected his own fears onto me, seeing my independence as evidence that I did not need him, when really it was evidence that he had forced me to become self-sufficient too early. I told him about the years of feeling invisible, of watching him pour affection into Cameron while offering me only casual dismissal. I explained how his comment on my birthday had crystallized decades of hurt into a single sharp moment. I described the satisfaction and then the emptiness of refusing to help him when he asked. It was not a complete reconciliation. Too much history existed between us for that. But it was a beginning, an honest acknowledgement of the damage on both sides, and a tentative agreement to try something different. When visiting hours ended, I stood to leave. My father reached out and caught my hand. "Thank you for coming," he said. "And thank you for being better than I taught you to be. You figured out how to be strong and kind at the same time. I do not know where you learned that, but it was not from me." I squeezed his hand gently. Maybe I learned it from necessity, but I am glad I did. The surgery went well, and my father began the long process of rehabilitation. I visited twice a week, bringing books and groceries and occasionally just sitting with him while he complained about the physical therapy exercises. Cameron visited too, awkward at first, both of us navigating this strange new dynamic where none of the old patterns quite fit anymore. One evening in late August, the three of us sat together in my father's living room. He was home from the rehabilitation center, mobile with a walker but still needing assistance with daily tasks. Cameron had moved back in temporarily to help, an arrangement that clearly strained both of them, but seemed necessary under the circumstances. "I have been thinking," my father said during a lull in conversation, "about selling the house. It is too big for me now, and the maintenance is becoming impossible. I could buy something smaller, maybe a condo, and use the extra money to pay back what Cameron still owes and have something left for retirement." "Are you sure?" I asked. "This house has been yours for 30 years. "It is just a building. I'm tired of being trapped by it. Time to let go of some things." He looked at both of us, his expression serious. "I owe you both apologies. Real ones. Not just vague acknowledgments. Ariel, I am sorry for making you feel like you did not matter, for treating your accomplishments as less important than Cameron's potential. Cameron, I am sorry for enabling your worst impulses, for making you think love meant never facing consequences. I failed both of you in different ways, and I am sorry." The words hung in the air, simple and insufficient, but also genuine. Cameron nodded, emotion working across his face. I felt something in my chest loosen, not forgiveness exactly, but release. "Thank you," I said. "That means something." We talked late into the evening, the three of us slowly building a new understanding. It would never be perfect. We would never get back the years that were lost to misunderstanding and hurt. But we could move forward, carefully, and with realistic expectations. Over the following months, my father sold the house and moved into a small 2-bedroom condo closer to downtown. Cameron found a job as a warehouse supervisor and moved into his own apartment. The restitution payments would take years to complete, but he was making them consistently, rebuilding his life one careful step at a time. I continued with my own life, the promotion leading to new opportunities and challenges at work. Tessa and I planned another camping trip for the next summer. I started dating someone I met at my pottery class, a quiet engineer named Marcus, who made me laugh and never asked me to be anything other than exactly who I was. My father and I settled into a routine of Sunday dinners, alternating between his place and mine. The meals were sometimes awkward, but they were honest. We did not pretend the past had not happened, but we did not let it dominate our present either. One Sunday in November, as we finished dinner at my apartment, my father set down his fork and looked at me seriously. "I never asked you this directly, but I should. Did you enjoy watching me struggle? When I first called you about Cameron draining the accounts, when I begged for help and you refused, did that feel good?" I considered the question carefully. In the moment, yes. It felt like justice. Like finally you were experiencing what I had felt all those years, being dismissed, being told your needs did not matter. But the satisfaction was short-lived. Watching you suffer did not heal anything. It just made me realize how much energy I had wasted being angry. Do you regret helping eventually? Building the case against Dominic? No. That was the right thing to do. Independent of our relationship. Those people deserve to have someone fight for them, even if that someone was me doing it from a distance. He nodded slowly. I am grateful you did. And I am grateful you are willing to try this. Building something new with me, even after everything. I am willing because I want to be, not because I owe it to you. That distinction matters. I understand, and I will try to earn it, to deserve another chance. That is all I can ask. Cameron eventually faced the full consequences of his actions. Beyond the restitution payments, he lost his banking privileges for several years and had to report his conviction on any job applications. Several positions he applied for rejected him once they learned about his criminal record. He struggled with depression and sought counseling, slowly working through the layers of shame and regret that haunted him. My father, witnessing his younger son's genuine suffering, finally understood that real love sometimes meant allowing people to face the natural results of their choices, rather than shielding them from discomfort. The lesson came late, but it came. Dominic received a 15-year sentence for fraud and faced multiple civil lawsuits from his victims. The investigation uncovered additional schemes he had run over the previous decade, defrauding investors across 3 states of nearly $8 million. Several victims never recovered their losses, their retirement dreams permanently shattered by his greed. Tyler testified against him, providing the documentation that helped secure the conviction. The experience aged Tyler visibly, stripping away his youthful naivety and replacing it with hard-won wisdom about trust and consequences. As for me, I learned that revenge was not as satisfying as I had imagined. The real victory was not in watching others suffer, but in refusing to let their mistakes and limitations define my own worth. I had built a life that stood independent of my father's approval, and that life was enough. More than enough. It was mine, created through my own choices and sustained by my own efforts. Sometimes late at night, I think about that phone call on my birthday, about my father's dismissive laughter when I asked if he had forgotten me. The hurt still exists, a small scar that will probably never fully disappear. But it no longer controls me. I have learned to carry it without letting it weigh me down, to acknowledge the pain without letting it poison my present. My father is trying, in his imperfect way, to be better. Cameron is rebuilding his life with genuine humility, and I am moving forward, no longer waiting for anyone to validate my existence or acknowledge my worth. I know it now, deeply and certainly, in a way that no gift or gesture could have taught me. Love does not come in boxes, but it also does not come through neglect and dismissal. Real love requires effort, attention, and the courage to admit when you have failed. My father is learning that now, slowly and painfully. I learned it years ago, out of necessity. and that might be the greatest revenge of all, becoming the person I needed when no one else was willing to be.